Sure. Well, it is 8:30, everybody. I'm going to welcome you to the May 10th, 2025 Delta County Regular Meeting of the County Commissioners. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Is there any additions or edits to our agenda today?
I have none.
No. The agenda will stand as submitted. Constituent time. This is time for anybody to come address the commissioners. I know we have one Mr. Anderson would like to join us. Chad, please come up, introduce yourself and where you live.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Chad Anderson and I live in Cedar Ridge, Colorado. I'm here today to try and stop a few things that is happening at my residence, and it's been happening for several years now. But let me ask you about a nice summer day. You're out and about with your family. You go to a baseball game, and it's a pitcher that's been known for years of just being great, throwing a pitch every time, okay? But the tickets you got are behind the catcher without a backstop. Okay, how comfortable would you feel sitting behind there with balls being thrown at you at 100 miles an hour without a backstop and somebody up there swinging a bat, after they hit that ball, what direction does the ball go? Okay, nobody can tell that, nobody can predict that, okay? Now, here's my situation. I live right next to a rod and gun club, okay? And I have lived in my residence for approximately about 30 years now. When I moved to this property, I'm sure they own the property when I moved there. But on top of that hill, there was a cement box. That was it. Cement box, dirt, weeds, whatnot, I know that because I was a resident here. That's where I used to go neck with my girlfriend's spouse. And that's where we parked. And like I said, it's one of those things. I've been a resident here for a long time. And I had a neighbor move in that likes to shoot high power rifles. Okay, well, they're on top of a hill. I just want to let you know, when I took my first hunter safety course, they wanted to make sure that you knew your background, what you're shooting at, and don't shoot off the top of a hill because the trajectories are unknown. How far that bullet will travel, how far if you hit that, if you were shooting at an animal, okay, you hit your animal, another animal is standing behind it, you hit it by accident. Does the game warden, say, oh no, that's okay, that was an accident, or does he give you a ticket? And that's something that there's just some demonstrations that I have. But these are things that I have found on my property. These are bullets that have expelled from a rifle. Okay. I have called the sheriff's department several times on this. The last time I called the sheriff's department, the officer was very rude to me. And the time before that, he actually hung up on me. Okay, now, I don't know if someone's shooting your rifles and you have bullets flying over your head, ladies and gentlemen, would you feel comfortable about where your situation is? And it doesn't happen every time they shoot that I know of. But if I'm outside and, you know, I know what a ricochet sounds like, and I know what it looks like. You know, I found one of these bullets on my front steps before I enter my house when I opened my door. I found another one of these spent bullets in the back of my pickup truck. And then my daughter found another one of these up on my air conditioner, by my air conditioner, excuse me. Now, you know, the last conversation I had with the Rod and Gun Club owner, or the president, excuse me, his exact words were, "I've talked to you about this before, quick." What am I supposed to do if I can't get any help from my sheriff's department? I can't get any help from the person that runs the business. I got told if I go up there, I'm gonna get a trespassing charge. How fair is that to me? Every time I've been up there, I've talked like I am to you folks. I've never been up there, raised my voice, because I know what's happening. I enjoy firearms myself. You know, you know, I don't wanna shut the place down. I just wanna make it safer. You know, and it's not safe for my family and I. You wanna look at it, would you care to look at an aerial photo here?
Sure.
You know, I have a.
Chad, would you pass those around the,
Yes, for sure. My house is in direct line of every time they pull a trigger, my house is in the line of fire. Whether it's at the bottom of a hill, but I challenge anybody to stand at the bottom of my hill when they're up there rapid firing for over 2 hours and feel comfortable at 1,075 feet. That is 3 football fields, folks. 3 football fields. And I don't know if anybody would feel comfortable with that. You know, would you take your grandchild, would you take your child outside when there's firing going on? You know, that's my concern. I have a grandbaby now that I love dearly. And every time I go outside, I get anxiety because I have people up there shooting like hell. And I just don't know how to stop it, besides come to my second commissioner meeting and explain to what's going on, you know, and, you know, it all started out, you know, someone with, they were up there firing shotguns and, you know, the stuff hit my roof. They said that's impossible, you know, with our deal. But I looked on the internet, I looked at stuff, and if you put the wrong shell in your gun, stuff's gonna fly that far. And like I said, I'm a simple person. I'm a family man. I've lived here for 54 years. And I love my house and whatnot, and I don't know where else to go. I don't know what else to do. Besides, you know, I don't wanna say defend myself, but man, when I get all, you know, when you go outside and there's rapid fire going on, you have to go inside because you just can't take it, you know, is this what PSTD sound, you know, PS, whatever they call it?
Do
Is
you
that
have
what it
the
is?
contact information for the Rod and Gun Club?
Yeah, I have a phone number and a website, and that's all I have. Another, I'm glad you mentioned that, because if you do look at their website, and they have a perfect video in there of, their pistol range. But if you look at the top board on their backstop, there's bullet holes in the top of the very top board. You can't tell me that every one of those bullets is staying in that facility. But that's just the pistol range, okay? They're shooting into a catcher's mitt there. Okay, that's fairly safe to me. But the rifle range, they're shooting through a rubber target. You know, they claim there's, you know, 10 and 15 tall piles of dirt behind that. Okay, but their target is 4 feet in the air. They're not shooting at that whole pile, they're shooting at half of it. And once that bullet goes through that rubber target, what is the trajectory of that? Could it be up? Could it be sideways? Could it be, yes, all the above.
well, Mr.
You know.
Anderson, the ask for the commissioners is to do something here, and we don't have the jurisdiction.
Okay,
You gotta understand that.
well, can you suggest to somebody that they
suggestion-
make it safer?
My suggestion, and Sheriff Taylor is sitting right behind you there, if you could have a conversation with him. And this may be a civil matter.
Okay, well, this is what I'm trying to avoid.
I agree.
If I get an attorney, I will fight to shut the place down. I don't wanna make it safer, you know, at that point. You know, why should I? You know, I just want them to build a backstop to where, you know, they're catching their bullets with a roof over their target, you know, so it's not ricocheting. You know, and it's pretty simple fix, you know, besides going through the whole lawyer.
And nobody
stuff.
likes that, and I agree with you.
And that's why I'm here.
So,
And like I said, I need some help from somebody. And maybe Mr. Taylor will help me, but his officer refuses to. And I don't, you know, I've talked to Mr. Taylor once, you know, briefly on the phone, but now that he's maybe heard what I've said and maybe be able to see what, because I don't know if anybody's looked at an aerial photo and looked at I'm in the directive line of fire. You know, this place, you know, Delta County, I know it was willy-nilly with the, you know, you can just do what you want, you know, but there's getting to be a lot more people. And, you know, something like this shouldn't happen to somebody else that moves in, you know, they're shooting off the top of a hill. You know, this is some, you know, and I have a gentleman that I call on the phone and he's very short with me and hangs up on me. Now where do I go? There's, you know, you know, you suggest you can't help me, but to go get an attorney, well, that's not helping me. I'm not a very rich man, you know, I'm stuck between some rocks and some hard places.
I would
And
suggest visiting with Sheriff Taylor and see what
Okay.
avenues are open there for you.
I will.
And I appreciate you bringing this to our attention.
Like I said, just remember, gentlemen, ladies, 1,075 feet, bullets are flying over Mr. Anderson's head, and someone does get hurt by chance. You know, what kind of story is that? You know, been neglected for over, you know, I've been calling for probably about 6 or 8 years now. But anyhow, if I could get my items back, I guess. And I do appreciate your folks' time.
Well, thank you for coming in.
Like I said, I don't know what to do about this kind of stuff, so just thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming to us this morning.
Would you have time to come talk?
Yeah, if you want, you can hang out a little bit, I have a fever meeting here.
Is there anybody online?
No, sir.
Ms. Rowland, you came in late. Would you like, this is constituent time. Would you like to visit with
Something
you?
good to talk. No, I'm gonna be here for the DHS meeting later on today, so.
Very good.
Thank you.
Welcome. Delta County would like to recognize former Commissioner Janet Rowland. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
Hearing no other constituents, I'll turn it over to Terry Stevenson.
Morning, Commissioners. I have the minutes for the April 29th Board of County Commissioners special meeting. Are there any additions, changes, or deletions to those minutes?
All you've done.
I looked through them and I didn't see anything, Terry.
Thank you. I also have the minutes for the May 6th BOCC regular meeting. Again, are there any additions, changes, or deletions for those?
Down here.
See any?
Same. Thank you, Terry.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, first item under Commissioner business then is consideration and possible award of final bid tally for 2025 RFP 15, Delta County Sheriff's Office Detention Facility Portable Radios. Sheriff Taylor and Chris Stewart are here.
Morning.
You want to explain the grant?
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning, Commissioners. So, the jail, Captain Cano and Jackie Felix obtained a JAG grant. Justice Edward Byrne, it's from the Department of Justice, passed down through the state last year. They purchased 20 new radios for the detention facility. Currently, the radios that they're using are 15 plus years old, and we're kind of limping them along and repairing them as they go, falling apart. Especially now that we're operating on 2 floors, and Captain's been asking for some radios so they have reliable radios to communicate in the jail. So with them securing that grant, specifically for radios, we put it out to bid. We got 3 bids back, and upon reviewing them with Captain Cano and Sheriff Taylor, two-way communications at Grand Junction, quoted the Kenwood VP 5430 BKF2 radios, which is the exact radio that we have already in court security and some radios in the jail. That's the radio that we are comfortable with. And Chris Green and Two Way is a local company that we've done lots of business with and are comfortable working with him. I'm familiar with all 3 of the bidders, but I'm not familiar with any of the ICOM radios, which were low bid, but we do not have any ICOM radios at all in the entire county. So I would not feel comfortable bringing in a brand new radio. So our recommendation would be to go with bidder number 3, two-way communications for $49,400. The grant is actually for a total of $66,200. So we're under budget, and then we'd request permission to be able for the sheriff's office to negotiate with Two-Way to purchase additional radios for the remaining $16,800 and some additional batteries with that, so we can fully expend the grant funds that we've been awarded. Anything else, sir?
No, I would just mention, just like Chris mentioned earlier, that communications is an important thing over in the jail, especially now that we have 2 floors. The ability to communicate is top priority in the current radios that we are working with over there. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't.
Questions for the sheriff or Chris on this?
Is there any value to the old radios?
There is, and we'll probably keep them. We haven't discussed kind of what we'll do. We keep a stockpile for fires and stuff, and if we don't need all of them, John Hillebrand with Mesa County can repurpose them, or we can give them to some of the fire districts because they don't have portable handheld radios. So that might be a good use to give them to them, and then they can utilize them because they're not using them every single day like the jail deputies are.
So with total grant funds and it's at bidder number 3's price, how many radios can you acquire with the grant monies, and what's the life cycle on those?
So the bid was for 20 radios at the price quoted, plus shoulder mics and a high capacity battery, and then 2 6-bank chargers, so that they can just charge them up there in the jail. They didn't break out per unit, but dividing the bid for the radios out. Also, the $49,400 includes programming of all the radios. So it's $48,000 even for the 20 radios, the shoulder mics, everything. So if you divide that up, it's $2,400. So we could get another 7 radios, possibly 6 radios and some batteries. That's what I would like to negotiate with Chris and see what we can get with the remainder that's left over. So the radios lifespan, like I said, most of the radios now, we're looking at 10, 15 plus years on these since they're brand new, especially in the jail.
Any other questions, gentlemen?
I have none.
Well, I move that we accept the bidder number 3, two-way communication out of Grand Junction for the radios in the amount of $49,400.
I'll second that motion.
Would you also like to include the ability to?
I'd like to make an amendment, Commissioner, that we give the Sheriff's Department the flexibility to add additional radios to fully expend the grant funds.
So amended, yeah.
So seconded.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
That's good use of those grant funds. Thank you for doing this.
Okay, next we'll have Amy Perkins, Delta County Tourism Coordinator. She'll come forward with the recommendations from the Delta County Tourism Board for appointments of tourism board members and ex officio members.
Good morning.
The Delta County Tourism Board, had appointments are made by the commissioners as recommended by the tourism cabinet. The board consists of one member from each geographic area and 2 members at large. Current members include Casey Dukeman from Delta with his term expiring, their 3-year terms in 2026. Daniel Roman from the North Fork area with his term expiring in 2026, and Sarah Henderson from Surface Creek with her term expiring in 2028. There are 2 at-large positions currently open. The Tourism Board would like to recommend Katie Smith from Delta for a 3-year term expiring in 2028. Annalise Wages from Crawford with a 3-year term expiring in 2028. The board would also like to recommend Jess Devrin Ackerman as an ex officio from the Paonia North Fork Creative for a 1-year term expiring in 2026. And ex officio Dr. Mariah Eamon from the Delta Area Chamber for a 1-year term expiring in 2026.
Questions, commissioners, on these appointments?
No, we had 7 applicants total down the way.
Yes.
Amy sent out a survey a couple weeks ago asking for input and who we suggested, and so this is kind of what we all settled on, so I'm comfortable with these choices.
Good job, Amy, for getting them all lined up.
You'll need to make a motion on this.
I make a motion that we add Katie Smith and Elise Wages to the Delta County Tourism Board for the term of 3 years, ending in
28.
28, thank you. And Jess Dervin Ackerman and Dr. Mariah Emmond for a 1-year term as ex officio members.
I second that.
Any other discussion, gentlemen? All in favor?
Aye.
So done. And congratulations, Miss Amy, on your new appointment as Tourism Director.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be here. Thank
This
you.
was well presented.
Thank you.
Okay, next for ratification is the letter of agreement regarding national forest payments in accordance with Secure Rural Schools and the Community Self-Determination Act. This year, funds were significantly reduced. The amount received for the Secure Rural Schools from the congressional spending was $51,640.88. Previous years have been well over 130,000. And you have the letter of agreement that outlines the distribution. Lisa DeVoya, Delta County Treasurer, has calculated the actual distribution to the school district, to the Delta County Road and Bridge, for the total amount of $51,640.88. Because that dollar amount is less than 100,000, then the funds that we normally allocate to Title III, which funds has been going to the Southwest Regional Fire Council, they will not receive any of the Secure Rural funding this year. We have not put forward this information yet to them, but we will convey that. But we wanted this agreement presented before you for your signature. We do have the signature of Karen Gibson, Delta County School District Superintendent already. Any questions on this Secure Rural Schools? There is a potential for additional monies to come if it is congressionally directed, but we've not heard any specifics on that as of yet.
This, the numbers here, 25% to the school district and 25% to road and bridge at 12, 9, 10. And then the next paragraph is distribution of the remaining 50%. Are those numbers accurate, the 35%, or should that be another 25%?
No, that's because it is of the 50 after you take off the 25. So Lisa Toya has calculated all of the amounts.
Okay.
When do we get the money?
The money is in place.
Good deal.
Just has to be spent.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I move that we approve the letter of agreement regarding National Forest Payments funding in accordance with the Secure Rural Schools and Community Self-Determination Act and authorize the chair to sign.
I will second that motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Who has that document?
I have the document from Karen Gibson, so I'll get that.
I'll get that. Okay, thank you.
Next for your consideration is ratify the warrants.
Mike, you got that one?
You betcha. Get my computer loaded up here. Well, I move that we ratify the various warrants from the various funds. Fund expenditures paid by warrant numbers 154-213 through 154-497 and ACH transaction 1061-1088 from April 1st, 2025 through April 30th, 2025, totaling $1,249,399.88 in accounts payable and $1,871,030.78 in monthly county human services and health department April 2025 payrolls for items budgeted and approved per Delta County policy.
I will second that motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Okay, next for your consideration then and discussion is a response to the Public Utility Commission and CenturyLink regarding the informal complaint filed on April 16th, 2025. Emergency Manager Chris Stewart is here for additional discussion.
Morning again.
Good morning again.
So in your packet, you should have had the response to PUC did respond to our informal complaint just via email. And that was provided in your packet. Essentially how they handled the complaint was, it was submitted to the 911 division of the PUC, who forwards it to the Consumer Affairs Complaint Division, so that the 911 doesn't have any influence over it. And then they pass it on to CenturyLink as the basic emergency service provider to respond. And then that is the narrative that you have in that email is the response from CenturyLink. I'm assuming that's an attorney that responded on behalf of CenturyLink. Essentially, they ruled that the issue with the voice over IP routing between March and last year, June of last year and March of this year, was due to a firewall on our side of the system. So essentially it is outside the basic emergency service network. The PUC only has authority over the basic emergency service network, which is the part of the network from where telecom providers remit the 911s. They're only responsible for providing it to our side of that network. So once it hits that firewall, it essentially becomes our issue at that point. I talked with Matt Gage, who's the director of Montrose Emergency Telephone Service Authority, who was very instrumental in helping us throughout this, because METSA is the 911 authority for Montrose County and the Wesco Dispatch Center. And Matt's been doing this for over 20 years, and he's way more experienced on the 911 system than I am, especially with his GIS background. And we're in a unique position here because yes, CenturyLink is both the BESP provider for the state under the tariff, and they're regulated by the PUC, but they're also contracted with us to provide the telephone service that answers 911, the software Vesta. So everything from that firewall to the dispatch center is our equipment. And it is provided by CenturyLink, but it's under a service contract with CenturyLink. It's not under the authority of the PUC or the BESP network. And talking with.
So does the PUC understand that that's CenturyLink's firewall?
how they have their regulations, they say it's under a service contract and therefore they cannot regulate it.
Go
As,
ahead.
as frustrating as that is. So talking with Matt, he says that, because even though it was frustrating, it took them 8 months to identify that, hey, there are issues with the firewall and they're the only ones that were allowed to touch that firewall. They installed the firewall, they programmed the firewall with Motorola. That falls under a service contract that we had with them and is therefore a civil issue. And the PUC cannot issue any regulations over that because the calls were hitting that firewall, bouncing off, and then the network was routing them as designed to Wesco is how it's been explained to me. So the actual basic emergency service was performing as designed. So therefore the PUC had no repercussions against CenturyLink in this case.
So they're kind of off scot-free here. The problem has been resolved though, right?
The problem has been
Are
resolved.
you happy with or at least somewhat satisfied with the actions to prevent recurrence listed here?
Yes, to the extent that we have control over CenturyLink, which is we don't have any. So I think the best step going forward is that the dispatch supervisor, sheriff's office, and myself need to be watching CenturyLink like a hawk. And if we have any issues at all, we're opening tickets, we're documenting every single thing left and right so that we can prove whether it's a BESP network or something on our side and making sure it gets resolved immediately. That we can go and we can work with John or something if needed about going through the contract. There's other, I'm drawing a blank on the technical term, but the software that answers 911, we don't have to be with Vesta. We just paid $305,000 to upgrade that system, so I'm not in any hurry to get rid of it, but when we come time to renew it, there might be another system out there that's not sold by CenturyLink that we might want to consider that we would have more control over or support over. Essentially, the three avenues that we have with this are, this has been documented, it's in the commission's complaints, it's on file that there was an issue and how long it took them to respond. Since it's not under the authority of the BESP, I don't think we have a case to proceed with a formal complaint, which is basically an administrative lawsuit against through the PUC against CenturyLink. Or we could go through the terms of the contract and work with John's office if we wanted to sue him civilly for breach of contract that way.
What is the term to that contract? Is that an annual contract we have with CenturyLink from?
We have an annual, we pay service annually, but I believe the term is longer. I would have to pull it up and look.
So basically they're telling us that from June 6th to March 6th. Oh, well, sorry about that. We got it fixed. There's nothing you can do about it.
Essentially.
They're not willing to meet you halfway or do anything, it sounds like, from this letter to try to remedy some of the issues that you had monetarily.
They're definitely gonna meet us monetarily because that's only through the PUC that can direct that. We do participate in the EZNet user group meetings and stuff, and I'm trying to make a point that either Sierra or myself are on each and every one of those meetings. We also participate in CCOA, Colorado Coalition of 911 Authorities. We're the representatives on that for the county, and that's where there's a lot of good discussions about what's going on with the network and stuff and possible recommendations on behalf of all the 911 networks that are members to the PUC about rulemaking changes and stuff.
Are you aware of anybody else that's had issues like we have with CenturyLink across the state?
Not specifically with the voice over IP. There are other little things that pop up. The biggest thing, like right now, Larimer County, LEDA, which is Larimer Emergency Telephone Service Authority, they do Larimer and Jackson County. They're going the informal route because of routing issues, if you remember, with Estes Park. And they've been proceeding down that formal complaint route for over a year. And I think they just now have a hearing date because there's been so many motions filed by CenturyLink to try and derail the motion and things with their side. So it's a very long process to get anything before the PUC.
Chris, we appreciate the doggedness with which you have pursued this. And if you had not, I doubt we would have resolution today.
CenturyLink sincerely apologizes. So there's whatever that word.
John, did you have anything additional?
No, other than, no. We can sure look at the contract and even report back to the board kind of what options are under the contract. That's what.
Do we have a contact person at CenturyLink? Do we have a good working relationship with that person or persons?
We do have a contact. They are almost completely unresponsive to anything. It's because how their business model, I'm guessing, is structured. Our representative, Jeff Winkleman, is responsible for several states, and that's been a complaint on the 911 task force meetings and stuff that I've been on of even the PUC 911 representatives have complained on recorded meetings that they're completely unresponsive to 911 authorities, and it's unacceptable. I think he's responsible for like 911 networks in 5 states. So as part of the Homeland Security grant, I was trying to get a quote for a laptop that would connect into their system. So if we had to evacuate dispatch, we could answer calls remotely. Took 5 months for me to get a quote for a laptop. So to answer your question, there is a contact there, but it takes a while to get answers. I want to maintain that relationship because I think if we push too hard on something that we don't have good documentation on, we risk getting ostracized by CenturyLink, and then they won't respond at all to support requests or anything. There's been cases where that's happened in the state where authorities have gone after them with complaints or lawsuits, and then they don't get any support at all.
Well, like you said, documentation from here on out and real diligence and keeping an eye on it will be key to making sure this thing operates securely.
And we're very fortunate, as I said before, as we reviewed the complaint that we submitted, to have our local service tech who is amazing, that supports us in Wesco. And if we wouldn't have had him, we probably wouldn't have had the resolution that he works well with us, so we can use him as a resource too.
Any other questions for Chris on this topic?
No questions, just thanks for doing what you did to make this happen, and not the outcome we were hoping for, but at least the issue has been resolved.
And it's been documented, so if this continues to happen, we can refer back to it.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Lindsay, for review of the schedule.
Morning.
This afternoon, at 11, this afternoon, we have a work session for CSTI on Zoom.
CTSI.
CTSI.
Thank you.
Excuse me, thank you. 1:30 to 3:30, road and bridge work session. And 3:30 to 5, a Board of Health meeting. Tuesday, May 22nd. 8:30 to 9:30, we have coffee with Commissioner Craig Fuller. And we're also going to have Project 127 join us at Cat's Cafe in Cedar Ridge. Everyone is welcome. Coffee is on Commissioner Fuller. Thursday, May 22nd, 11:30 to 2:30 is a Region 10 board meeting. That is in Montrose. Monday, May 26th, Memorial Day, all administrative offices of the Delta County buildings will be closed. Tuesday, May 27th. I'm so sorry, I misspoke. Tuesday, May 27th is coffee with Commissioner Fuller.
That's what I had, so.
Yeah,
I was gonna skip out on the 20th. But that's actually an hour ago anyway, so.
um. Saturday, May 31st, 8 to 3 is free day at Adobe Buttes landfill. Please check our Facebook page for all the details of that. Monday, June 2nd through the 4th, all day, the commissioners will be at CCI Colorado County Summer Conference. Monday, June 2nd, 1:30 to 3 is a digital accessibility plan workshop session, which I think might need to be rescheduled. Tuesday, June 3rd, the Board of County Commissioners regular scheduled meeting will be moved to Tuesday, June 10th. So just for anyone online, again, the Tuesday, June 3rd, regular Board of County Commissioners meeting will be moved to June 10th. That is something else.
No,
They're having an internal discussion over here about what the meeting was called or not called.
Yeah.
it'll rat us out.
And then June 10th, 1 to 2, there's a work session on psychedelics here at 560 Dodge Street.
1 p.m.
Yes.
Okay.
Tuesday, June 13th, 2:30 to 4:30, there's a tire shredding meeting at 560 Dodge Street.
That will be in the field, location to be determined.
Tuesday, June 7th, 8:30 to 12:30 will be our regularly scheduled. Street. June 17th, 1:30 to 3:30 is a work session for Road and Bridge.
Are we actually gonna have that?
That'll be decided today. If we're gonna take the summer and not have the work session,
Okay.
so.
So why don't we just go ahead and stop there, and then at the next June meeting, we can.
Very good. Did Lindsay capture everything on you guys' calendar?
I'm seeing something on Friday the 30th, a wildfire meeting, it says. It looks like something that I wrote, so I might have gotten myself in trouble by doing like I did yesterday, not finishing the details of what that's all about. May 30th, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m.
I don't either.
Should be a good meeting then.
It'll be short. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. We had no jail reports today. Robbie, did you have anything else for us?
The Conservation District was scheduled to be here at 9. I've not heard from them. They still may show up. They had wanted to thank you for the dollars that you had put forward in the 2025 budget for the staff support and to give you the results of that. So I will work with them to reschedule.
Very good. We don't see them here in a couple minutes. We've got, at 9:30, we've got Human Services with Annie Gallegos,
Correct.
so we will adjourn until 9:30. Thank you, everybody. Welcome back, everybody. It is 9:30, time for Human Services and Director Gallegos. Good to see you. You're a little thin today with your staff here.
Well, Lori's on her way over. One of the TANF family that we have didn't pronounce right, so she's bringing the different copy. So she'll be in just a minute. And then next month, we'll actually have our new administrator joining us.
Very good.
So we will start this morning with financials, as usual. The payables report.
Didn't know anything to bring up that was different than normal cost for payables. Are there any questions on the payable?
Nicole, is there anything in there that you want to bring to our attention
Not
particular?
this month, we're boring.
Boring is a good thing.
In terms of where we are with the budget, we should be at 25% at end of March. And we are at 23.7%. We have an out-of-home easement out of state. They were able to get him approved to back date to January to bill through HICPA, so we're waiting for a meeting with them so we can get reimbursed back to January for what we've paid for him now.
That's significant.
I think it's over 100,000, I believe is what we'll be getting back.
Right, we received, I think, like 238,000 from CDHS, and then we'll receive that some from the Medicaid billing. I will say that the facility in Florida started the negotiation process with HICPA for Medicaid claimability in August. And it was approved in February. So, yes, it took a long time. And we still, even though it was approved in February, we still don't have the rate approval to then backdate. So that's kind of just an example of the process they went through. So.
And then we'll have a meeting to know how we're gonna do the billing and what goes back to the state but it'll be an interesting learning experience.
I think the goal is eventually also to, bring that individual closer to home, closer to family and those types of things, but it's getting him stabilized enough for facilities to agree to take on some of the behavior management that he would have and meet his specific needs, so.
Do you have any leads yet in Colorado?
Not in Colorado. We have states that are closer than Florida at this time, but there is only one facility in Colorado that would accept his level of need, and they have denied him the entire time, so.
Is his family supportive of him?
Yes, yep,
Yeah.
family goes out there, the facility actually flies them out there, and he stays out there, and they do work with the parents in behavioral work and like tools, techniques, things like that, so they're very involved.
Well, good.
Any questions on budget?
Nope.
Where we are with revenues and expenditures? On goal. I have a little LEAP update I can do.
Please do.
The state did get the last 10% of the federal LEAP allocation, so they will be sending out a supplemental check for those who were approved for LEAP, and it should be between $150 and $210 per approved household. They are still, we had 1,176 approvals for the year, 287 denials, and 246 of those denials have until June 15th to provide missing information to where they could still get approved. So we tried, maybe we can put that out on Facebook with you and see if anyone can. We're contacting them through Tatiana. She's reaching out to each one, but she doesn't get a lot of back communication from them. So she tries. Overall, our county has received 564,800 in the benefits. And we did look at Mesa and Montrose because our applications are lower this year than last year, even though we've done outreach more this year. But Montrose and Mesas are also lower. And I think the consensus is the weather was different from last year versus this year. So
How much different? 50 applications, 100.
for us, it was 109. For Montrose, it was 62, and Mesa 123. But they also get like 5,500 applications a year. Ours was just about 1,200. But Montrose, they had about 1,800 applications. So we kind of compare ourselves to them because we usually track pretty similar. They did have a billboard for LEAP this year. Every time I would go into Montrose, I'd see the billboard on the right side for LEAP. I know we can't do that here, but maybe we need to
I don't know if our outreach funds would cover this.
That's true.
That's good data. Thank you, Nicole.
We are gonna try to do more outreach next year for like qualifying factors. So I think we were gonna try and do like popcorn bags for pool events that do popcorn and have on there how, like, what criteria qualifies you, because I think people think the income limit is lower than it actually is. We're gonna try a little different approach, see if that works. That's fine.
Sounds good. Any questions? Anything else from Nicole? Okay. The only other thing I'd add to that for financials is that our mitigation is due next month. And so we'll be submitting that application, and that's for any over expenditures in child welfare block. And so far, looking at the allocation, we should be made whole by the state. There is not any concerns about that for balance of state counties. On June 2nd, we'll also be voting for the allocation methodology that they're changing. There's a couple of different options, but with each option, it will continue to grow. So we should be seeing a significant increase in our child welfare allocation, which will help because we need it. All right, next, we're moving on to self-sufficiency with Lori. The main piece we have an action item for this program area is the TANF MOU. It's the annual reaffirmation, and this runs from July 1, 2025 through June 30th, 2026. This, there was a little bit of controversy relating to this MOU because of the changes from 1259, and there's still options out there of how counties are going to continue to support that legislation as it goes into play, and the basic cash assistance continues to raise. And so they have not agreed on what the MOU will look like for next year. So for this next fiscal year, it's just a reaffirmation of what standard practice has been. So there's a rule writing group and working group to address the current or the next MOU. It will have implications for counties that are expected to overspend, and so they want to look and address those things in there of what county expectations are. So, do you have? It's 11 pages. We submitted it earlier, but do you have any questions about it? It lays out, I think, pretty nicely what our expectations are for providing the program for outreach, and then what we can expect from the state, especially when it comes to the ability for us to develop those contracts with our local partners for prevention work when we do like the backpack program and Haven House and things like that. This is the funding that allows us to also do that piece.
If there's really good change from last year's, I think we understand it pretty well.
Yeah.
The next year with changes coming,
Mhm.
we need to understand what's going to go on there.
Yep, I agree. It's a hot topic right now.
Gentlemen, this would be an action item for Director Gallegos.
Well, I move that we approve the memorandum of understanding annual reaffirmation between the state of Colorado Department of Human Services and the Board of County Commissioners, and authorize the chair to sign.
I will second that motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, so done.
Do you want to take that up there to sign? All the pretty signatures. I think it's just on the last page. Yeah.
Harry, you gotta notify. We gotta
Mhm, I think
notarize this
that-
one.
Next item, eligibility. We've continued to see some staffing changes there. We are expecting potential changes to the programs coming up. We have a couple meetings. We have heard that there is potential for the fall be work requirements for Medicaid programs, which would include, they're projecting it would be 80 hours a month of either work, school, or volunteer that we would have to be documenting and case managing a little bit for the Medicaid population with some of those enhanced populations. So there's a couple meetings set. There's nothing set in stone right now. We're continuing to talk about what that would look like, what the impact will have to members, what the impact will have to counties. So there's just a lot of unknown, but we will continue to follow those meetings and participate and discover what that means for us. And then with part of that, there could be some potential changes also to the types of eligible populations. They could be lowering those as well. So some of those populations may be excluded, which could impact our CHP plus population. So we'll have to watch some of those because I think our community, that's kind of the gap service, right? So if you don't qualify for Medicaid, but you can't afford private insurance as well, that CHP plus is kind of your gap safety net a little bit. And so there could be some impacts there. So we're also watching that closely as well. Moving on, we have conferences this month for both child support and for the fraud conference. So we'll have some staff traveling to distant lands like Keystone and Bay. I don't know where the fraud one is, but Colorado Springs, there you go. So going and networking, which is always a really nice opportunity for staff. And I also think lends to retention as well. So I think that will be good. Child support usually takes most of their staff, and every time they go, they win awards. So hopefully they'll come back with some more awards this year. Child abuse fair. We had for child welfare, we had the child abuse prevention fair in April. Thank you for attending in the proclamation. I think we were excited to see how many providers we had. I think we almost doubled in the amount of providers we had from last year, which was nice. And always trying to figure out how to get more families involved, because it's sometimes a weird time of the day with working families, kids getting off of school. So we're gonna continue to strategize around that and see if that's still the same time for next year. We have some plans for that. And then we have the administrator position starting next month. And so he will be transitioning over to our area in the next month or two. And so I think the team is really excited knowing how much experience he has, but also what he brings to the table. He has worked with a lot of teams. He's been in this position in other medium and rural counties before, overseeing adult protection and child welfare. He's also an adjunct professor and teaches bachelor's of social work students. So I'm excited of what that can look like for our team to grow in knowledge, and also just what that will mean then for the community in practice. He also did roll out DR in the counties he was in previously, which will then support our rollout of DR that we did this last year as well.
Where's he coming from?
So he was in counties in Garfield and Pitkin. Yeah. He lives, I think, in Glenwood Springs right now, so he's making the transition over.
So he's gonna relocate to Delta County?
To somewhere over here, I don't know specifically. We've met a couple times and he doesn't have an exact plan of a house yet, so we'll see.
When
But he's been
on-
coming over on the weekends and looking.
When he comes on board, please bring him around. We'd like to meet him.
Yeah, I sure
Thank
will.
you.
Yeah. And then, last but not least, we have adult protection. They have seen an increase in caseload, and Lynette finished out her kind of work with, she was doing some work with them to help get them through the last couple months there. And so she is now finished up. Mesa and Montrose have been very helpful and supportive to our staff and allowed us to go up and do some training, so it wasn't falling all on just one, the lead worker. But we have received some applications and we'll be doing interviews for that open position as well. So we'll be doing that hopefully this next week. And then I think, and I talked about mitigation, so I think that's the most of my report. But I have one more piece to talk about. So considering the report, is there any questions or comments?
Are you connected with this new, that had the grand opening last week, the BH, what was it called, BH?
Yes, KBH.
KBH,
Yes.
there you go.
So actually, Dr. Ray had in the last couple months came over, met with myself, and was introduced to a few of our staff and was inquiring of what are the needs, what are we looking for, and what services are there gaps in right now. And so we've actually been talking with him quite a bit about what our families need and what we see in prevention work and what we see also in kind of our high risk assessment and dependency and neglect cases. And so He is then going to be coming to introduce himself to all of our staff within the next, hopefully the next month or two, once they get up and running. But they do accept Medicaid, Medicare, and private insurance. I believe they also do have a sliding scale fee too. So I think they're going to be an asset to our community, and they're willing to go work with individuals in potentially in their homes or at school and things like that as well, which is always tough, because sometimes you just need to meet kids where they are and meet families where they are and remove some of those barriers. So.
Good.
Yep. We're happy to be there and happy to have a Chicago dog.
What is the staffing level for you guys besides the one caseworker and adult?
So we actually have an opening right now in child welfare. That is more recent. So we have one child welfare caseworker, one adult protection caseworker, and then one child support technician and four eligibility technicians. We actually most recently internally filled our fraud technician. One of our supervisors had been covering that caseload while doing supervision, which was quite a load. And so now that we have hired for the fraud position, it leaves us a gap in one of the technicians, but that by itself is a full-time position and really has needed that. And we haven't had that filled for about 2 years. Yeah. About 2 years. It's a hard position because you need to know so much of the programs to then go into that position in order to oversee the fraud pieces, right? So it takes a unique individual to do that.
Yeah, we were able to fill that internally with somebody that's got experience now with all 4 programs. So.
And she had some experience working in fraud in Mesa County prior to, so.
Glad to hear that, but that's a significant number of positions open.
We still continue to get applications and hold interviews as we can. So, you know, there was times in past years where it would go months without an application, and that was difficult, and we don't really see that anymore.
Well, we have our in-house trainer, and so she's got 3 newer staff that she's training right now, and that's a big load for her because she's got to review cases. So we kind of are at a standstill as far as interviewing and trying to hire until she can kind of get those ones through and moving a little bit further down.
Any other questions, gentlemen?
No.
Thank you.
Mhm.
What
So
else did you have?
The last piece is I wanted to introduce Janet Rowland, not that you don't know her, right? And have her speak a little bit about Project 127. We have now launched the care portal and we're all signed up. We haven't put anything in there yet, but just to talk about the recruitment and retention efforts in the next year that we'll have and how that will help families in need in their community.
Good morning.
Yes, as Annie mentioned, we're focused, Project 127, first of all, on behalf of them, we're really excited about this partnership with Delta County. My counterpart, Lisa McJennet, our Western Slope director, is unable to be here today. She lives in Grand Junction. Her and her husband have fostered for 22 years. I think they've had 94 kids in their home. Still has 2 littles, and she's in between school and summer camp, so she couldn't come up today, but she sends her regards. We're focused on both recruiting foster families and supporting them. For recruiting them, we're starting a new campaign called Fostering Hope. As you know, the foster families are licensed by the child placement agencies or CPAs, so we want to recruit equally for them. So we've identified 4 families, 1 from each of the CPAs. We're doing a video on, excuse me, on a video on that that we'll be launching. And then we have a bonus family, Commissioner Fuller, who makes our 5th foster family we're highlighting. We really wanted to show the need for a variety of foster families. Sometimes people think you have to be in your 20s or 30s, married and own your own home and have 3 dogs and a cat. But that's not the case. And so we have one foster family who is a single mom who rents an apartment. You don't have to own your own home. And then we have other families that are more traditional, and then some that are empty nesters and have decided to open their home and do foster care. So we'll be launching that in July, highlighting a different family each month through the end of the year, really looking at the different types. And not everyone can foster, but we know everyone can do something. So we're also making opportunities available for folks to support using Care Portal as primarily the major source of that. I think the secret sauce with Project 127 is the support they offer foster families. Having been a caseworker in child protection previously, I saw firsthand the families that would do a great job, and after a year or so, they would burn out and close their home, and you'd start all over again. So there's a range of things that Project 127 does, and kind of their original model from 21 years ago is really building a support team around that family. But Care Portal allows people anywhere in the community to get involved and help in any little thing that they can, or as large as they can. So I think you're familiar with the Care Portal and how people can put needs in. Examples of that could be maybe kids have been in foster care for a couple of weeks. The grandparents are happy to take them. They've done all the background checks. They're great, but they're on a fixed income. They're retired and they don't have enough beds. So you can put that request in the portal. It goes out to everyone who has signed up, and someone can drop off some bunk beds or whatever, maybe go and buy them some if they didn't have some available. It could be that you have a mom whose kids have been in foster care for 18 months. She's completed her treatment plan. She's going to get them back, but it's taken all of her money to do her first and last month's rent and deposit, and she doesn't have any money left for food. That goes in the Care Portal, and folks that are signed up can do that. When Care Portal was initially developed, it was to use churches for that purpose. So you have churches that get involved, and then what we call responders or volunteers from those churches, but you can be involved if you're not involved in any church at all. We can use service clubs, businesses, and if you're just an individual, we can even connect you that way. So there's lots of ways that people can help, and we'll be sharing that with the public over the next couple of months. We had to have 2 churches signed on before we could launch, because you don't want to have requests coming in that don't get filled. And so the Gunnison Valley Nazarene Church was the first, and the Delta Christian Church was the second. Commissioner Fuller got me in to speak there. So we're doing training with them, training with DHS staff and the CPAs. We hope that around mid-June, we can actually formally launch this. So we're very excited about that. Do y'all have any questions?
We are equally as excited as you are.
Good. I think it'll be a great partnership.
We're looking forward to it.
I think one of the things that also I want to highlight is that I think for years we've been talking about that when kids come into care, there is a lot of kids that have to leave our community. And if there's a way to keep them stabilized with the support through the Care Portal and through support teams for just more homes availability in our area, kids don't have to leave. And families can work through some tough behaviors where sometimes they might say, I just can't do that, right? But if they have support, we're hoping that that will also really help to change and shift and keep our kiddos here in our community.
I did the math looking at Annie's numbers last year, on average about 45 kids on any average month in foster care. And from what I can find, we have 48 churches in Delta County. So if every church just had one family and then they supported that one family, we wouldn't have to send Delta County kids to the Front Range. So that certainly is a goal of ours.
You guys have got a huge heart to take on something like this. So commendation to you, Janet, certainly, and the other foster families, and Craig Fuller and his family. So
Craig's done far more than I ever have or will, trust me.
I have a question though. How did Project 127 get its name?
From a verse in the Bible in James 1:27, where it says religion that God finds pure and faultless is to look after orphans and widows in their distress. So it was a pastor actually in Aurora who started it when he learned that there were over 800 kids in Colorado in foster care whose parental rights had been terminated, and they were just waiting for a foster family or an adoptive family, just lingering in foster care. And I think he did the math and said, we have over 1,200 churches just on the Front Range. Surely we can do this. And now they're down to about 300 kids, I think, that are waiting. Some of that obviously from other reasons, but that was kind of the foundation of it. He himself as a pastor fostered and adopted as well. So he practiced what he preached, but that's the name.
Wow, good to know. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Craig, anything?
I'll say everything you said.
I think Commissioner Fuller's wife was one of my favorite quotes. We interviewed them last week, and we were talking about the need for all different types of families. And she said she was told this by someone else, but don't let your age be a barrier, that you don't have to be in your 20s and to be a foster family. You can do it at any age. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
All right, well, I think that concludes our report. Thank you for your support over the last couple of months, especially for our eligibility unit and coming to the fair. I think the staff has felt very valued, and I think that that goes a long way to talk about what Delta County provides to their employees. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Right back at you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Any other business for the board this morning?
Yeah, Callie's here.
Hi.
We're gonna take a quick 5-minute recess.
Okay, thank you. We'll come back on the record. It's 10 o'clock and we have soil conservation information day, and welcome Kaylee Hale. Thank you.
you. Yes, for those who don't know me, I've had the pleasure of meeting Commissioner Lane a few times, but my name is Callie Hale. I am the district manager for the Delta Conservation District, which primarily incorporates most of Delta County and goes slightly into Montrose County as well as Gunnison County. So it's a quite large area. We are conservation districts. The Delta Conservation District will be celebrating its 75th anniversary next year, which will also be the United States 250th and Colorado's 150th anniversary. So it's, 2026 is a very monumental year for us.
Bring the fire.
I hope Delta County. Here I'm here to present our annual report for 2024. Which was constructed. Like I said, we do cover over 1 million acres of landscape with the Conservation District. And our board currently has 7 of our 9 seats filled. We are actively recruiting, but we for those roles, and we partner with many other organizations, including the Chavana Conservation District, which incorporates Montrose County, Valley Food Partnership in Olathe, NRCS, which is the National Resource Conservation Service, and several other organizations around the valley that make sure that we can provide the best possible conservation services to our farmers and agriculturalists, as well as our just landowners in general. For the last 3 years, our top priority concerns have been water quality, land utilization, weed control and management, renewable energy sources, and outreach and education to the community. Our work, we have 2 district conservation technicians, which are primarily partially funded by Delta County. We have $14,000 each year that is given to us in the budget for conservation work, and through that we've been able to assist in 90 active EQIP contracts that impact over 10,000 acres. There's nine completed projects in 2024, and about 17 new contracts started in 2024 as well, with over $2 million in payments going to irrigation and conservation projects in Delta. So that $14,000 really does make a difference in the long term for our landowners. So we do have several other programs as well. We have a drip tape adapter program that's really exciting. We're working with Colorado Ag Water Alliance on that program to create an adapter that would fit into gated pipe that will transition into that will allow gated pipe to transition into drip irrigation, which could in turn make our water demands significantly less in the coming years. This is a huge step in water innovation, and this is one of our projects I'm really excited to be we're kind of coming to an end of one of our milestones here shortly this year. And so I'm really excited to be we're going to be doing testing this summer of it to really showcase how much water efficiency we can bring. So
how many miles of drip tape does it take to service your area?
Well, it depends. I'm partnering a little bit with the Chavana Conservation District and a company called NDRIP on a project that will impact, I think, let's see, we were just going over numbers yesterday, but they're hoping to have 10 large-scale commercial farmers and ranchers transition some of their fields to this, which I believe is close to probably 500 miles of tape that will be brought in with this grant, and that will probably, working with other organizations, greatly diminish how much water demand we have for row crops. So
What's the lifespan of the drip tape? Do you have any idea?
well, N-Drip tape is the partnerships that we're hoping to work into, and that would work with our drip tape adapters. We're testing hopefully this summer. Their life, because they can support dirty water there and they don't need as much filtering, it lasts much longer than a traditional drip tape. So it can cost several years. You would before you'd have to update that. So, but we will, that is one of the factors that we'll be updating as well. So on that. So any other questions before I move on?
On your mission page,
Yeah.
the micro hydro, how well is that taken off? You guys just highlighted one of your.
Yeah, we've done a few educational events regarding it. It's been harder, I think, when I was not with the program. I've only been in my position about 6 months. When I believe that was an initiative that was brought forth by our NRCS working groups almost 4 years ago. And I believe that there was some momentum for that. However, they found the logistics of that in Delta County very difficult with every ditch company having their own pressure points and things like that. So, but I do think there's room for those conversations to go into our open ditches, but it was very difficult to get an overall consensus between the ditch companies for that.
That's historically been a sticking point, is, the micro hydros and ditch companies, and, who's gonna maintain, who's gonna take care of, who's gonna connect, who's gonna disconnect, all that stuff, so.
I definitely think there's potential. I just think it needs a more unified voice, which is ironically how the National Conservation District Association came to be, when bringing all the conservation districts together to have a unified voice in Washington. So maybe that is something that could happen.
Coming out of the Gunnison Tunnel there at Montrose, they have that's not considered micro hydro by
No.
their stretch, but shrink that down, that's kind of what their goal was, right?
Yeah, absolutely,
Just,
yeah.
A lot of those on a much smaller scale, scattered all over the place with all this running water we've got everywhere.
And we have so much drop in elevation that we could support ourselves very well on hydro.
Yeah, the elevation is that's our ace.
Yeah.
It's like the water's moving, let's use it.
Exactly. So I don't know if it's quite the project that we're moving into with our new water concerns, but I do think, or our new natural resource concerns, but I do think that it is something that the county may want to investigate. Absolutely. Speaking of irrigation water though, we did partner with, and we're currently partnering with Mesa Conservation District on the Delta Montrose Master Irrigator Program. It's a 4-week intensive irrigation education program for our producers to help them be more water efficient and aware of the everything from water law to meteorology and how to make our irrigators more effective. We have 2 classes in, as a partnership, we have 2 classes in Mesa County and 2 classes here at the rec center. And which is a beautiful space, by the way. I live in Montrose and I thought it was great. I thought it was a wonderful space for us to use. But we were so successful this year. We had, of the 25 seats that we had, 13 of them were filled by Delta County participants. And we had almost twice as many applications from Delta participants for that program, so than Mesa. So there was very much a need for it in the district. We were able, we'll be having this program for the next 2 years, and we're currently in planning for our next year's, which will be in February of 2026. that we are partnering, it's a statewide partnership, and we have received, I believe, a $2 million grant to continue the program. So very excited about the process of that and just making sure that our landowners are getting proper education on how to be better stewards. We still are partnering with CSU on several projects. We have CSU alumni or scientists on our board, making sure that we're staying abreast of all the technical and scientific updates in the district as well. This year and we received funding in 2024 for an ecological planting grant that we were able to get out to the public this year, and which is allowing for small projects up to $10,000 that we can provide to landowners to put in natural pollinator habitats and wildlife habitat for people on their farms and ranches. That was a really huge monumental thing for us, is that we were able to actually put money pass through to Delta County landowners and making sure that they had access to funds to actually make improvements on their homes. So that we're still in the giving that money out process, but that should be getting results soon.
How do landowners find out about these programs?
So we don't have a Facebook or a Instagram, and I think that's some of the improvements that I may bring to the district. My predecessors weren't fully, but
I don't think it's
been updated. I haven't been told about it, but I will look for it now. I didn't even know we had a website until like 3 months in. So it was going from somebody who was there for 11 years and then somebody who was there for like 6 months, and then to me, there was a lot of missed opportunity for those things. But we do have a pretty robust mailing list. I believe, Mike, you might be on it. And I make sure that you are on it, Commissioner Fuller, but that I'm slowly working on making sure that it is inclusive of everybody and updated. And so that has been going out. We've also I send out notifications of this to our partners. So VOGA, the Valley Organic Growers Association, Western Colorado Food and Farm Alliance, the Valley Food Partnership, the Chavana Conservation District, Mesa Conservation District. I've worked really handily through them. I think that's been the easiest thing as I transition into this role, to notify those things, but I do try to make sure it's as disseminated as I possibly can be. So.
And we can share it on ours. It's appropriate. I mean, we would be happy to share it on our Facebook page.
Oh, I appreciate that so much. Yeah. We are looking into funding to continue the program, so I would hope that we can continue that.
Yeah, we'd be happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I do have some information here, speaking of assistance in ways that you may be able to help us. The Colorado Soil Health Program is a huge program that funded conservation districts and landowners across the state to do better soil health practices. Many of the staff members that ran the Colorado Soil Health Program are Delta County residents, including John Miller and Susie, who used to be the district manager, and Toby McPartland. These people went to CDA to create something really grown on the western slope. Sadly, with federal funds being cut the way they are, the entirety of the soil health program was ended through those federal funds, which is really hard to see something that is homegrown to the western slope of Colorado, and the innovations that the western slope has been bringing towards better stewardship of the land meet an end like this. But also the fact that those funds also were capacity funds to our conservation districts. $18,000 of our budget each year came from the soil health program, and most of that funded my part-time position. I am not asking for those funds to be replaced by the county because I understand it is a small county and we are resilient and we'll find a way to make up those funds. But I do want to be transparent about the realities of what the federal budget slashings have caused even within homegrown local small government. We are housed, the Delta Conservation District is housed within the local NRCS office. When I started 6 months ago, we had 7 engineers, planners, and technicians that were actively helping, working on all those contracts, that almost $2.5 million of contracts in our county. And within the last 6 months, we've lost 5 of them due to positions. We are down to 2 people. We have 1 engineer for not just Delta County, but Chavanel Conservation District, Mesa, Glenwood. There are 2 engineers on the western slope. There are only 25 current NRCS employees on the entire western half of of Colorado. And so the reality is that the NRCS is in a place where they can't even buy office supplies except for once every 3 months because of how these federal funds have been slashed. So it impedes the work of our landowners and our farmers greatly. Because those 19 new contracts that started last year now are on at least a minimum 2 to 3 year waiting list before their projects can even begin. Because there are not engineers to do them. And that is a hole in service that could be a place that Delta County, the conservation districts could step into and hire our own engineers that could take on some of that workload. And I believe that there's conversations on how that collaboration could happen and we could step in to help our landowners. I wish I had a better note to leave this update on, other than conservation work is still happening. We're still work. I had the blessing opportunity to do outreach. We did outreach with our river trailer to the 4th graders of Delta County up in Paonia the other day, showing them about how erosion and water and salinity impacts even a 4th grader's life. And that was so exciting and wonderful. And then yesterday I was able to go to the Mesa Academy School for these are students and high schoolers who are really struggling with traditional schooling. And I was able to go in and do a lesson with them about why conservation is so important, because conservation is the continual, it continues natural resources use by humans while also preserving them. And how we can be better. We can create a world that those kids can still access our forests while us still having wood and logs to prevent. And that does bring me to, Commissioner Lane came to our annual meeting in March and we did a survey with landowners and we've continued to give that survey out. And I've got the opportunity to collect the natural resource concerns of over 50 large scale landowners and as well as our more urban people as well. And we have our top 5 natural resource concerns for the county. And so that's really important information, not just for us to have, but for you guys to have, to see this is what your county landowners care about. At this point, they're really concerned about the soil health, about all this tilling and the soil going up in the air with the high winds. And obviously water insufficiency is a big deal. So supporting programs like the drip irrigation project and other things can be where we can step in. But they're also really, landowners are really concerned about wildlife habitat restoration, making sure we still have places for nature to exist in our spaces. They're concerned about wildfire because of biomass accumulation and not going in and logging dead trees out. And so I hope to share that information with you to give you an outlook that your landowners are engaging in this conversation. And so I think it is a bright future if we want to take the opportunity for it. That's it, but
You're just a little bit passionate about your work, aren't you?
I'm very passionate. I
That's good.
um,
It's good
care
to see.
deeply.
Yeah, well, Callie, thanks. I know it's kind of a trying time right now and we just encourage you. Delta County is a solid partner as we move forward, so thank you.
So much, and I'm so grateful for your guys' support and making sure we have our technicians, and thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
No, I'm done. But thank you for coming
coming
down.
in.
Absolutely.
Very nice presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Nice to meet you, Kelly.
Nice to meet you.
Well, if there's nothing else to come before the board, we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Thank you.